Welcome back to CBS Mornings. A new CBS Reports documentary on Congressman George Santos, he of the many fabrications, will air tonight. And as you're watching, because we know you will, keep in mind that sources tell CBS News that the Securities and Exchange Commission made inquiries into his alleged involvement in a, quote, fraudulent Ponzi scheme, victimizing hundreds of investors. Santos, here are the details, was a regional director of a small investment firm, Harbor City Capital, for about a year before the SEC shut it down for alleged fraud. Important to note that Santos is not named in the SEC complaint, and he has said he was not aware of any wrongdoing at the firm. In that CBS Reports documentary, though, a woman says she was a childhood friend of Santos, and she tells our Caitlin Huey-Burns how the Republican congressman used her to try to attract new investors.
Where's George?
Long before Long Island voters,
Why are you confident you'll be cleared?
I'll be cleared because I have nothing to hide.
reporters, and even a Republican senator confronted New York Congressman George Santos over his apparent lies.
I was so outraged. I was so upset.
Tiffany Bogosian, who met Santos when he went by George DeVolder at this junior high school in Queens, says she had other reasons to be suspicious. In an interview for a new CBS Reports documentary, Bogosian told us she and Santos lost touch until they ran into each other again 3 years ago at this Starbucks.
Guess who I ran into at Starbucks?
By then, a New York lawyer, Bogosian says she told Santos about a $2 million settlement she had just won for a client. In response, she says Santos invited them both to dinner.
It was this huge room with like one table in the middle. He asked for a $300,000 principal investment, and he essentially said the client was not allowed to know what was being invested in at all.
Her client didn't like the sound of it and turned down Santos's investment pitch.
And we now know that that was a Ponzi scheme.
It was all fraud, yeah.
In December, Santos apologized for embellishing his resume after revelations he never worked for big investment banks like Goldman Sachs or Citigroup, as his campaign website had claimed. But one place Santos did work was an upstart financial firm called Harbor City Capital, where he was regional director.
Currently at Harbor City Capital, I manage a $1.5 billion fund. Right? And I know how to manage it well.
But after just a year, federal financial regulators at the SEC shut down Harbor City Capital, calling it a classic Ponzi scheme. The SEC complaint did not name Santos, and he has denied any wrongdoing. But after Bogosian and her former client described the dinner meeting to the Washington Post, the SEC reached out to her about Santos and his investment pitch.
It's crazy to me now thinking back because, I mean, he's had these characteristics from so young.
When Bogosian says Santos was bullied in school.
He was trying to be accepted and fit in, and I think he always felt like an outcast. He started these lies, and I think it just continued, and this was the only way that he knew how.
So he kind of felt the need to tell a story to get accepted into these groups.
Definitely, yes. It worked for him then, and I think it worked for him for a long time. I mean, it got him into Congress. What I want to know is why.
And Tiffany Bogosian told us that when she saw Santos sitting alone on the House floor, she actually felt bad for him and reached out to him to see how he was doing. She told us that he told her that these swirling controversies were all fake news. And I'm really excited for you guys to see this documentary that was produced by our incredible investigative unit. Just amazing, amazing work. Because we talked to a lot of people that knew him personally, people that were cheering for him and that were also duped by him.
That question of why is what everybody wants to know.
Yeah,
why?
definitely.
Exactly.
It occurs to me, Caitlin, that he couldn't get past HR at most companies, but he can get elected to Congress.
Yeah.
Well, that is the amazing thing about this, because there's no formal vetting process for Congress. You depend on committees, you depend on this party infrastructure. And this is the thing that voters are saying that they were duped, and they're calling for him to resign, and he's resisting those calls.
Yeah, they are calling for him to resign. And the title of this documentary, I think, puts a pretty good label on it. Caitlin, thank you very much. It's called Campaign of Deceit, to your point, David, the Election of George Santos. And it premieres tonight at 8 Eastern on the CBS News streaming network and on the CBS News app.